liquid nitrogen-infused drinks, lab-grown burgers, ultrasound-modified spices. There's almost nothing the modern high-tech kitchen doesn't provide. 3D printers don't stop at the kitchen door either. Printed chocolate art decorates contemporary patisserie and turns it into little pieces of art. But NASA's 3D printed pizza? Who on earth needs that? Imagine a scene like this. Sun-ripe tomatoes, fresh basil, extra virgin olive oil, and the smell of pizza dough baking in the oven. Dough patties swirl through the air, a glass of red wine is within reach, and the espresso machine eludes a delicious smell of freshly brewed coffee. Food indulgence the Italian way. Pizza commercials like this make our mouths watery. Now imagine a completely different setting. A calibrated robot arm mechanically moves back and forth while squeezing dough and other ingredients from its artificial nozzles onto a tray. The 1 minute it takes to produce the desired result, a pizza to take shape, seems agonizingly long. The many tubes on the apparatus give the impression that pizza is hooked up to life supporting machines. In any case, this scene doesn't make you think of a delightful dinner. It doesn't help that the dough is printed in a heart shape either. The question, what's the point about all of this, comes to mind, and the answer? The target market for this monstrosity is outer space. It was not intended for Earthlings to begin with. Welcome back to Code Red, Technology, Madness, and the Future of Humanity, the monthly podcast for people who are pissed off about technology going rogue, want to do something about it, and wish to use technology in positive ways to create a better future for humanity. My name is Ursula Yasin. I'm the founder and CEO of Vienna-based Red Swan, and it's my pleasure to co-host this video cast with Silicon Valley-based 354-fold patent holder, say this one quickly, the man, the myth, the idea-generating machine, Chris Kalabokis. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to be back again. I love our conversations. It's awesome.
So do I. So let's start into this. This episode is entitled La Dolce Vita versus NASA's 3D printed pizza. Do you already have a pizza print at home, or do you like to get your hands into the pizza dough yourself and make it with passion and love?
I love to cook, so I'm sort of anti that, but I know that there's many people out there who absolutely hate cooking. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that I noticed about Silicon Valley is that we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of more restaurants that I would expect to have in this area because nobody cooks. Right? I think I have a feeling that they're going to actually start coming out with condos where there's no kitchen because everybody just orders in Uber Eats, and there's the very few people who know how to cook in this area. So there's a huge need for some type of cooking device, I guess you could say, because a lot of people here leverage restaurants and ghost kitchens and stuff like that. This is where all of this stuff happens because we do so much buying of food through these types of services. It's unreal, and I wouldn't be surprised that you're not getting very healthy and nutritious food out of it as well. So there's a huge segment of the population that doesn't want to cook, which is unfortunate because I enjoy doing it. You enjoy doing it. There's many who enjoy doing it, but like I said, there's lots of people who they don't enjoy doing it. They just look at food as sustenance, and they'll just pick up the phone and they'll order it through Uber Eats, and that's very common around here.
Well, maybe the situation is still a little bit different in Europe, where I am living and your ancestors also come from. Originally, the 3D pizza printer was developed for NASA as a way for astronauts to occasionally enjoy more appetizing food during longer stays in space, like on Mars missions, for example.
Yep.
And from an astronaut's perspective, this actually makes sense. Compared to freeze-dried, powdered astronaut food, printed pizza certainly constitutes already a culinary breakthrough, right? But what amounts to a quantum leap on Mars isn't necessarily a big step for humanity. People living on Earth usually have fairly easy access to the next Italian restaurant or can pop a frozen pizza in the oven if need be. So it will be hard to explain the benefits of the 3D printed pizza to the average Earthling. What do you think? You already described, well, maybe there is a need, but still, I can go to a restaurant, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. You can absolutely go to a restaurant and take advantage of it that way. But I think that there's still some kind of a disconnect between what people want and what they're actually getting, because there's still issues with getting deliveries from restaurant. I don't know if you saw the famous $22 avocado toast picture that
Oh yes.
somebody posted. You saw that, right? So the avocado toast was like smashed up against the side of the box, and they said, "This is what I get for $22." And so there's still to be able to be able to create the food at home and
Mm.
program it yourself, and even use AI to sort of program the food in such a way that gives you the best possible taste for the best possible nutrients, I think is a good thing, especially for those people who don't want to undertake cooking. And this is the thing that I always talk about when it comes to sort of post-scarcity societies, is that once we get into a post-scarcity society in the further out future, then you should have the ability using technology to do whatever you want. If you want to cook it yourself and enjoy the cooking process and all that, that's great. If you want to get a healthy meal sort of created for you from a automated unit in the kitchen, that's good for you. And some people would probably do both, because if you're pressed for time, you might want a highly nutrient based meal sort of created for you before you rush off to that meeting. And then other times you can actually, bring out all the ingredients and build it yourself. So having the ability to choose between those two things, I think that's where we're going, because we need to get to the point where we can create our own future and do what we want with it.
Mm. Freedom of choice is certainly a big part in this. I just really, really have a hard time with the machine printed pizza. I think that wouldn't be a problem if the startup who created the astronaut pizza printer wasn't now trying to appeal to Earthlings as well. I still don't get the point. The NASA prototype has been adapted for the commercial market now, and with 1 million in seed funding, the product is set to conquer the Earth market segment under the name Chef 3D. Mission Earth will be launched in selected theme parks, sports stadiums, and shopping malls. The advantage, they say, is the robot works faster, more sterile, and more evenly than a human pizza maker. That's what they say. Well, I would say delicious. Those are exactly the attributes I would not use to describe a crispy, hot, steamed, fragrant pizza. Sterile fast food, one size fits all pizza is certainly not a compelling USP. Maybe that works in the US market, but in Europe, we take our time to wine and dine. We don't make and eat pizza with a stopwatch pointed at us.
Yeah.
So, Chris,
Well,
you
have you
described
ever,
it.
I have a question for you. Have you ever had a robot made coffee? Like a robot barista. Have you ever had a robot barista coffee?
You mean like a coffee maker?
No, no, no,
Or
no, no,
really a
no. An
robot?
actual robot making, like, on a robot arm making your coffee.
No.
No, and well, and or how about a smoothie? Have you ever had a smoothie being made by robot?
No.
And we've had, up in the San Francisco, we actually have burger joints that are robot controlled. They actually have a
Mhm.
robot machine that creates the burger.
Mm.
And the thing about it, which is interesting because some people would say this is a negative thing, is the consistency. Like you were saying, it'll create the exact same thing. It follows the rules to the letter, and that's the beauty of technology and robotics. It's not going to do anything different. It will create the exact same burger every single time. It'll create the exact
Mm.
same coffee, the exact same smoothie every single time. And for some people, that's exactly what you want, because you want that exact same thing. It's for people who go to McDonald's when they're in foreign countries instead of eating the local food, right? They want that consistency. But there's others who don't want the consistency. So that's why I was talking about before, is that we really need to give consumers all options so they can do whatever they want, and then that way they can self-actualize themselves better. Sorry,
Yeah,
I'm a
that's
positivist
true.
on all fronts. It's like
Yes, and that's
I
why
understand both
I
points of
like
view.
to have you on the show. Yes, just I think in Europe, if we see American tourists in Italy going to McDonald's, it's like a crime. That's really
I
like
agree. I agree.
get
It's
them
like I
out of
can't
the
imagine.
country.
It's like I'm in Hawaii, surrounded by Hawaiian food and Hawaiian flavors and Hawaiian scents and Hawaiian sounds, and there's people lining up at the Cheesecake Factory to eat there. And I'm like, what is wrong with you
Wrong with
people?
you. What is wrong with you? Exactly, exactly. And that's exactly what we think. If you see these people like in France, in Paris, where you have all these coffee shops, or even in Vienna, we are famous for all our coffee shops. And then you have people going to Starbucks, and it's not even good
Exactly.
coffee. It's
It's
not even
insane.
good coffee. But I understand it's familiar. And I must say, when I lived in China, in Beijing, McDonald's and Starbucks was kind of a familiar surrounding. So this
Hmm.
is why you go there if you had enough of diving deep into the local culture. Then maybe you need some, as you said, I can understand that you need some comfortable place where you know what you will get, because you always have so many surprises in a different country. So I
Yeah.
can understand it, but still, as we have such a rich food culture in Europe, it's a bit hard to understand. And I know that you describe yourself as a proud Greek Canadian. And we all remember the My Big Fat Greek Wedding films and all the delicious food presented in it. How does machine printed food fit into the rich food culture heritage running through your veins, Chris?
Oh, it doesn't. Not at all.
It doesn't. I'm very glad. For your European ancestors, I'm very glad to hear that. You
but
have.
but this is where I see things improving, because I mean, especially in the United States, there's an obesity epidemic, right? So there's an
Yes.
obesity
Yeah.
epidemic. People are
Mm,
eating too much of the wrong kinds of foods.
mm, mm.
And that's where I feel AI and technology can really help, because I don't know if you've been listening to my show AIDaily.us, but over the last little while, there's been researchers in two different universities that have created both a tongue and a nose for AI. So
Yeah.
AI is now able to taste, and
Mm,
AI is also able to smell. So once you take AI and give it the ability to taste and smell, then it can actually create its own new creations. So that's one thing. But then, in the other hand, is that you've got all of these people just eating this horrible food that, because it tastes good and it's
mm,
inexpensive. But
mm,
if you take all the elements together, if you take AI and give it a nose and give it a tongue and give it the ability to actually create healthy versions of food that's really bad for people, and create some new type of food that can then sort of help with the obesity epidemic. Obviously, they're going to have to make it appealing to
mm,
human beings to be able to eat it. So having all these attributes together might help with creating sort of like a base layer of food. So maybe it's not the stuff that we're going to sit down and enjoy for hours over some wine and some coffee, but it is the stuff of sort of base level sustenance for those people who either can't afford it or are having issues getting to it. Right. So I see a real I see this as a real powerful thing to help people get healthier. Right. And maybe we can eventually get it to, once it realizes that sound, that sort of smell and sound and taste and all these other attributes around food are super important to humans, maybe it can do things about that to improve the experience even more than it can. I mean, obviously what we're talking about is a real human experience. I mean, it's difficult for anything or even other beings to understand, the sensory experience around food and around eating. But I think having these devices, being able to figure it out or get a little bit closer to it, it just gives us another option of being able to create food that might be palatable to people who need help.
That's a very interesting point. I never thought of it that way. Because for me, I never give anyone advice on how they should lose weight, because that's a problem I don't have. But if someone asks me, really wants to know, for me, it is really indulging in good food. You have to be really satisfied with what you eat, then you are not craving things all day long. And of
Right.
course, things like intermittent fasting, etc., help a long way. That's really, don't snack all the time. So I think it's not as complicated as people might think from my experience, because for me it's so easy, always has been. But I understand that people have been trained also by the food industry to like a lot of sweet things, right? Which is kind of an addiction. It's actually
Hmm.
really an addiction. People are addicted to the sweet things, and you cannot wean them off of that so easily. I think you cannot say like, be a bit more disciplined. It's just really, it's. I think it's an addiction. So you cannot just say, okay, I don't do that anymore. So you might be right. Maybe AI can help us. Maybe there's really a good application to have that. I still struggle with the machine printed food, I must say. So, but
Well,
I,
it's no substitute. It's absolutely no
there's no
substitute. But
substitute. That's a good
for
point.
for
Yes.
really quick meals. So I
Yes.
think that the biggest problem is that you have the convenience. Anything that's super convenient is also
Mhm.
very unhealthy, right? So if we could
Right.
somehow
Yeah.
combine, like have the health benefits, the taste benefits, and the convenience, and have them all in the same
Mm.
thing. And if it happens to be 3D printed pizza, then so be it. If it happens to be 3D, I mean, I'm a Star Trek fan, right? So I love the concept of walking up to a replicator and
The
saying,
replicator.
tea Earl Grey hot, or give me
Mhm.
some chocolate cake or whatever, and then it goes ahead and creates it for
It
you.
would be great if it really works, and
And
it
it really
and
works
it
and
is healthy.
tasted correctly.
Yes.
Correct, right?
Yes. Yeah,
We're
yeah.
far,
And if
far
you
from something like that.
Yeah, I never thought of it because for me, it's like I try to eat as little processed food as possible. So
Right.
this is for me maximally processed. But maybe if it's a real replicator, you could have everything, right? You could say, I want it totally healthy.
Oh, absolutely. And what it would be able to do, and this is the end result, is like, let's say you ordered a chocolate sundae, right?
Mm.
But that chocolate sundae could taste and feel and smell just like a real chocolate sundae, but its nutrient balance is completely different. It's not full of sugar, it's not full of fat, it's not full of dairy. It's a completely healthy chocolate sundae. And we could, using replicator technology, get to that point eventually where we're keeping people healthy, but we're feeding them exactly what they want to eat. So
Huh.
I mean, that's a future I'd like to see at some point, but we're very far from that. And I think the best thing to do is be to balance things, right? Like you have the sensory meal, but then you also have, when you're short on time, convenient foods that are healthful, as opposed to
Mm.
being full of
Unhealthy.
fats and sugars and starches and things like that.
Do you think the food industry is on board with
Are you kidding? No way.
that? No way, right?
They're going to
No way.
continue putting the cheapest
Yeah.
ingredients in, as the
Yes,
cheapest ingredients as
exactly.
possible. And the problem
Exactly.
is that I think most of it is the institutionalization of it. So you have schools
Mm.
and
Oh,
cafeterias
yeah,
and stuff
yeah.
like that, and they're
Mm.
all owned by these giant. They all catered by these giant conglomerates,
Yeah.
and the food is basically made in some factory somewhere else and then brought to the location, and it's designed with enough preservatives so it can survive the trip. And it's like, I don't want my food to survive a trip. I want my food to be made here and now. And that's one of the
Right.
things that the 3D
Mm.
printing technology does. At least it creates, even though it's all made out of different substances, at least it creates something semi fresh, even though it creates it out. But lab grown meat and things like that, I think lab grown meat is an interesting question, because if you're a vegan, would you eat lab grown meat? Because
That's an
there
interesting
are no
question.
animals killed in
Mm.
the process. So
Mm.
would somebody do that?
Yeah, but usually it's based on some animal cells, at
Oh,
least,
sure,
right?
but no one is. If it
But
depends
it's
on the
not
vegan kind
killed.
of vegan
That's
you
right.
are, I guess.
Yeah, it's not killed. It's not killed. But that's
if
right.
you're
That's an
if
interesting question.
Yeah.
But we also don't know enough about these lab-grown meats, what they really grow and what does it to the human body. I think there should be some more research done
Oh
before
yeah,
it
for
gets
sure,
to human beings.
for sure. But I would have lab grown meat. I would try it once. I mean, I keep hearing about these things, and I don't think we shouldn't do them. Like, we shouldn't look at it ahead of time and go, "Oh, that's a terrible thing. We shouldn't try that." I think we
Mhm.
should try everything. We should try absolutely everything. And
Yeah.
if it doesn't work out, then fine. We follow that path. We realize that that was possible, but now we're looking at it and going, you know what? Maybe
It
we
was a
shouldn't do
nice
that.
idea. Yes. I also think I was intrigued by this idea the first time. And then you had this Beyond Burger and Impossible Burger. And as someone who likes to eat healthy and no processed food, then I looked at the ingredients. And I was like, you must be kidding me. I mean, from A1 to A57, there's everything in this. So it's totally processed food. It's not healthy at all. And then
Yeah.
they sell it as something healthy. I was very angry about that because really I like to try new things, but it should be healthy. I thought it could be a good way, but this was, I think, this really a failure. This was really duping people into something very unhealthy, and this
Yeah, I think
definitely shouldn't happen.
creating I think what we're trying to do is we're trying to recreate a certain flavor,
Mm,
right?
mm,
So what they were trying to do is they were trying to get meat eaters off of meat. But
mm.
in the process of trying to get a meat eater off of meat, they had to use so many chemicals to create this meat-like substance that they made it way less healthy than the meat itself. So
Yes,
you may as
yes,
well just eat the meat.
yes. So it's way more healthy to eat meat. Just do some barbecue, and it's way more healthy than that.
Oh
Yeah, but
yeah.
okay, you as you said, we tried things. This one was a failure, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm open to the idea that you can really in the future maybe have a replicator, and we have to
And
be better at it. It's not there yet, not at all. But let's see.
But see, that's the other thing about convenience is that one of the why do we need convenient food? Why do we need to grab and go? Well,
Mm,
because we spend too much time working or doing something, spending our time on something else. And
mm,
what if AI freed up our time so that we can have 4 hour lunches instead of a 1 hour lunch? We can go to that cafe and we can have the wine and we can have the luxurious meal that we can enjoy. I mean, we're stuck in this sort of treadmill now where we're running so fast and we figure food is the least important thing. It's just sustenance, just going to get us out the door. And I think we need to open up the time, our time frames, so that we can say, you know what, we should have a 2 hour lunch. We should have a 2 hour lunch every day, so that we can decompress, we can de-stress, we can enjoy ourselves, and then go back to doing the work. But right now, we're we don't give food the importance or the time for a break, the importance it deserves. And I think if we had AI taking more of that time off our plates so that we could free up the time to do that, I think that would be much better for us human wise. It's kind of like telecommuting, right? I mean, commuting, right? Technology has taken commuting away from us, which makes us healthier. If technology could take an extra hour out of my day and let me have a 2 hour lunch every day, then that would make us healthier as well too. We would just be
okay.
better all around people.
Exactly. So, as you say, and many cultures understand that very well, coming together to cook and dine is about much more than just getting food into your body. It's a
Exactly.
social event to connect and bond with other people. So, don't let robotic high precision machines take all pleasure out of your meal, and enjoy La Dolce Vita together with your fellow human
Although
beings.
I wouldn't mind it replacing some of these rude waiters we get sometimes. It's just you can have a servitor bring you your food instead.
Have you ever been to Vienna?
No, no, but I'd love to go. It sounds like a
Yeah,
beautiful
our
city.
waiters are an experience for American customers
Oh,
because
really?
it's the culture that they are very rude.
I hear it's
I
like that
had
in
some.
France too, but I haven't experienced it yet.
Oh
So,
yeah. Oh, France is still worse because they won't even serve you if you don't speak French. They're
oh
nice
my.
if you speak French, but in Austria they will serve you. But it's very clear they are dressed like they still from the emperor's time, and it's very clear who's the boss there, and it's not you.
Well, I'd love to be able to just experience that because that sounds like fun in itself.
I had some German friends because I went to school in Germany coming over, and we were at one of the very famous Café Central. It's really one of the very famous coffee shops in Vienna. And the waiters were so rude. I apologized to them. I said, I'm really sorry they're treating you this way. And they were like, but no, isn't that the Austrian charm? I'm like, no, that's not, that's just rude. But
It's part of the
if
Austrian experience.
if you enjoy it, go ahead. So, just to wrap up our conversation, I think 3D printers are a fascinating invention in their own right with highly useful applications. Just think of all the rare spare parts we can now print easily. However, get your robotic hands off my food. Yes, in patisserie, printed chocolate delicacies may enhance the food experience. I can totally agree to that because robotic ovens can do precision work very well and can support the confectioners after all. But if you want to successfully launch new technologies intended to replace previously common processes such as manual pizza making in new markets, it is usually advantageous to start with people's needs.
Mm,
And again, who on earth needs a 3D printed pizza? I think you also explained it very well, Chris. You said maybe let the machine do other tasks and let us cook and sit down and wine and dine together. Maybe that's a better solution. What's your
yeah.
take on that, Chris?
No, I mean, I'm in total agreement with that, but I still think that I think you're right about the augmentation. I think being able to use robotics to assist that humans to be able to do more intricate work, or maybe be able to do work quicker. Like, let's say you'd be able to really up level a restaurant's repertoire by adding the robotics to the machine, to the pastry chef. So the pastry chef is still there and they're still running the show, but they'd be able to do something more complicated or more interesting in much less time because of the speed of activity. Right, so we're not talking about replacing things completely with robotics, but bringing them in to augment the humans, to help them to work faster, right, to or to come up with designs and things. And that's the thing where generative AI is really interesting, because you could actually say to it, I want to come up with a new idea for dessert, and for ones that can smell and
Mm,
taste,
mm,
maybe it can come up with something brand new that no one's ever thought of, and put those flavor combinations together, something completely different that then sort of is renowned by the restaurant. So it's not necessarily, it's like a tool like anything else, right? So using it as a tool to assist the humans is really probably the best place for it to start. And then later on we can look at, well, maybe it can actually come up with new ideas, maybe. And some people are like, well, eventually there'll be no pastry chef required at all because the AI can design all these new pastries. But I don't think that's going to be the case, because the whole food experience is human. So
yes.
taking humans out of the food experience, I think, is completely impossible. I am sure that there's companies out there that are already looking at things like McDonald's in a box, right? Where they just go all the way out. They have AI creating the food. They have robots building the entire thing. They just sort of drop it in a location, and people can just drive up and put their orders in, and the entire thing is automated from beginning
Mm.
to end.
I
But if
think
you
it's
ask me,
already
that
on the way. They already
oh, I
dropped
wouldn't be
some.
surprised if it's already out
Yes,
there. But
yes,
the problem with that is that you can't take the human out of the equation. The food
right.
will have no soul. I mean, there's people
It
who
will not have
are
a
okay with
soul.
food with no soul, but I'm not. I'm pretty sure you aren't either.
No, I'm not. I'm not. That's very beautiful, Chris. And now I'm hungry. Um, but with your hopeful words about food and soul, and I really think these two things are linked together, I would like to close our conversation today. Thank you very much for the insightful discussion, Chris. You convinced me a little bit, not entirely. I
Just a
still
little tiny bit.
just a little tiny bit. You opened a new perspective for me, and I hope you did that for our audience as well. Would you like to add anything for them to know?
uh, I think people have to be less concerned with technology coming in and changing our human experience, because it's going to be everywhere. It's already in a lot of places. It's going to be everywhere. AI is going
It's
to
already
accelerate it.
everywhere. It's there, right?
And we need to embrace it and go, how can we use this to help humanity flourish, whether it's in food or any other area? How can we use it as a tool to make things better for all humanity?
That's right. I think we should think about that. And I like to say, make it yours. Right? The
Hmm.
technology is there anyways. In Europe, we have a lot of discussions about AI and how to regulate it. Maybe that's a little bit in the wrong direction. Many people say, well, America does do things, we regulate. So that I think that's a valuable or a valid point of critique for that. I think AI is already here. It's everywhere. We now I think the best thing we can do is to start making it our own and use it for the benefit of human beings. So I totally
Exactly.
agree with you, Chris. So that's it for this episode, lovely people. Thank you for watching Code Red, Technology Madness and the Future of Humanity. If you liked it, please like and subscribe. Do you know 3 people who would also enjoy the content? Then share it with them. All episodes are publicly available and free of charge. You're more a reader than a listener? Then feel free to subscribe to the written Code Red columns on codered.redswan.substack.com. In any case, let me thank you for taking the time and for your bravery to change the world by starting with yourself. I wish you a good day or a good night, and in any case, a good life. See you next time.